I want you to close your eyes for a second. Take yourself back to, what was it, 2016. You're sitting on your couch. Maybe you've got the lights turned off. You open up Netflix, and you see this group of kids on bikes riding into the woods at night.
And the synth music kicks in.
Exactly. The synths, the font, the grain on the film. And it was terrifying, right?
Oh.
I remember watching that first season of Stranger Things and genuinely feeling like I was watching a horror. It was quiet. It was sticky. The atmosphere was, like, heavy.
Yeah.
If a twig snapped in the upside down, you knew someone was about to die.
That tension was the currency of the show. It was built entirely on the fear of the unknown.
Totally.
You didn't know what the Demogorgon was, only that it could smell blood from across dimensions. It was, a masterclass in atmospheric storytelling.
Fast forward to today. We have the autopsy of the final season in front of us.
Ooh.
We're looking at a comprehensive analysis by pop culture commentator Marina titled Why the Stranger Things Final Season Failed. And the diagnosis is rough.
Yeah, that's putting it mildly.
We're just talking about a bad ending here, are we?
Okay.
This isn't just, I didn't like who ended up with who.
No, not at all. We're looking at what the source material describes as like a complete collapse of the show's...
A collapse.
McBain argues that the show went from a 10 out of 10 cultural monolith...
Something that literally rewired how we watch television.
Exactly. To a 2 out of 10 disaster. And this isn't just about quality, it's about the sociology of the audience.
Okay, so break that down.
We are going to look at how a beloved series can just unravel, the psychology of fan backlash, including, and this is the wild part, a literal denial of reality.
Wow.
And then the structural pitfalls of modern TV storytelling, the why it happened.
It's a heavy list.
Yeah.
But before we get to the psychology of the fans, which I'm very interested in, we have to look at the scene of the crime, so to speak. We have to look at the show itself. And it starts with that atmosphere, because according to our source, that silence, that fear...
It's gone.
Gone.
Completely. And this is the first major point of failure McBain identifies. The loss of stakes and the Disneyification of danger.
Disneyification, okay.
In season 5, the Upside Down isn't a horror movie set anymore. It's a military base.
Wait, walk me through that. A military base in the shadow dimension.
Literally. We are talking helicopters, floodlights, soldiers, fortifications.
Okay, but how?
Well, that's the thing. The source points out this massive logic gap that really just undermines the whole premise. We spent 4 seasons learning that the monsters, the demodogs, the bat, are attracted to sound.
Right. A drop of blood, a footstep, a twig snapping, those were death sentences. That was the whole point.
Exactly. Silence was survival. But in season 5, you have the deafening roar of rotor blades inside their home dimension.
They should be swarmed.
They should be. You have heavy machinery, and yet the monsters are nowhere to be found.
So the monsters just, they moved out? Did they get noise complaints and leave?
Chuckle, essentially. It seems the terrifying creatures, the Demogorgons that ripped Bob Newby to shreds in season 2, just disappeared to make room for the humans to have their tactical discussions.
That creates a massive disconnect.
It does. The source argues that the writers prioritize the aesthetic of a war movie over the established rules of their own.
It feels like they forgot what made the show scary in the first place. The monsters don't care about your military strategy. They are apex predators. They hear noise, they come running.
And that's a classic example of Disneyification. To make the show bigger, to have these, Marvel-style action set pieces with helicopters and explosions, they had to break the one rule that made the show ground.
Silence equals survival.
When you sanitize the threat to make room for the goal, you lose the horror.
And speaking of sanitizing the threat, we have to talk about plot armor. Because this season, it wasn't just armor. It was like a full-body force field.
An impenetrable one. The source was pretty brutal about this.
As it should be.
It's a valid critique. McBain points out that the main characters feel invincible, like completely untouchable.
I've seen clips of this. There are scenes where characters are standing directly in front of charging demodogs.
And the monsters just run past them.
Because they aren't main characters. The monsters know who has a contract for the spin-off, apparently.
It just breaks the immersion. In season 1 or 2, if you were near a demodog, you were fighting for your life. That was it. End of...
Now, the danger flows around the main cast like water around a rock. There is this one specific scene the source analyzes that had me laughing, but also kind of groaning.
Let me guess. The
radio towers. Did you catch this part of the analysis?
Yes, the physics-defying This is a prime example of stakes being raised artificially and then resolved nonsensically.
So paint the picture for us. You have the group on this, what the source calls a comically large platform at the top of a radio tower.
Right, and the world is literally crushing into it. The wind is howling, debris is flying, it's total chaos.
So it's a high-stakes moment.
Supposed to be. And Steve gets flung off.
Now, in a show with real stakes like Game of Thrones or even early Walking Dead, Steve is gone.
He's dead.
Or at least he's falling and getting gravely injured. Something with consequences.
The audience expects death. That is the visual language, the scene, the slow motion, the scream, the music.
But instead, Jonathan catches him.
With one hand?
With one hand.
And pulls him up.
John, the guy who, as the source so perfectly puts it, inhales plant and takes photos. Suddenly, he has the upper body strength of Captain America.
It completely breaks immersion because it violates the established reality of the characters.
Yes.
We accept telekinesis because it's part of the show's premise. That's the buy-in. We don't accept a skinny teenager suddenly having the leverage and strength to pull a grown man up from a dead hang in gale force winds.
Just because the plot requires Steve to survive?
It tells the audience, don't worry, nothing bad can actually happen here. It's a wink to the camera.
And that's the moment you lose the tent forever.
Precisely. And it happens again and again. Like with Nancy and Jonathan in the slime room.
Oh, the slime room. This sounded like a Fear Factor challenge or something.
It really did. They're trapped in a room and it's filling up with this questionable slime.
Lovely.
It's rising. They are running out of air. It is the perfect setup for a tragic end.
Okay, so you've got them trapped, you've got rising slime, a ticking clock.
And they have this emotional breakup confession. The music swells.
It feels like a goodbye. You're bracing for it.
It does. It absolutely feels like a goodbye. And then, miraculously saved at the last.
Of course.
No ingenuity, no clever escape, just save.
It's the false promise of a bloodbath. That's what hurts the most, I think.
Yes.
The Duffer Brothers spent the entire promotional tour teasing that no one was safe. They used the word bloodbath. I remember that distinctly.
They did. And when you promise a red wedding and deliver a Disney ending, the audience feels cheated.
It is a breach of contract.
It is. And the source notes that the only death was Callie.
Callie, I had to look her up. She's from season 2, right? The bad episode.
Yes, from the Lost Sister episode, which is statistically the lowest rated episode of the entire series.
And she was already the least liked character?
Of all time.
So killing her isn't a sacrifice. It's practically fan service. It's taking out the trash.
It's like the writers looked at the roster and said, who can we kill that won't upset a single person or affect merchandise sales?
Right.
That's not a bloodbath, that's decluttering.
So it's not brave storytelling.
The source compares this to The Walking Dead, which lost its cultural dominance when the audience realized the main group was safe. It stopped being a survival show.
And became a superhero show without the costume.
Exactly. Or, even worse, Game of Thrones, where the White Walker threat, built up for 7 seasons,
The ultimate big bad.
was defeated in one episode with a single stab from Arya. It's the same pattern. The bigger the buildup, the harder it is to deliver a satisfying, consequential payoff.
It really does feel like they were too afraid to hurt the toys they wanted to keep playing with. But, okay, let's pivot. We've talked about the bad scenes, the lack of stakes.
Right.
But the source material dives into the how. And this is where it gets really interesting for anyone interested in, the media industry, because the production choices this season were baffling.
This is where we get into the structural issues, the stuff happening behind the camera, and it starts with the release schedule.
The dreaded volume split. Netflix decided to split the finale into 3 parts: Thanksgiving, Christmas Day, and New Year's Eve.
Which, in theory, is a marketing strategy designed to sustain conversation. You turn a binge watch into a month-long event.
Keep the show in the headlines for a whole holiday season. I get it.
But in practice,
It killed it.
it killed the momentum. The source argues that Volume 1 was actually pretty well received.
Really?
Yeah, specifically, Episode 4 with Will's power reveal, people were hyped. The source admits to standing on their bed in shock.
Okay, so the hype was real. But then you have a month-long gap, a full month.
And in that gap, the audience's imagination runs wild. Fan theories spiral out of control. People write essays, they make videos. They basically write their own better version of the finale.
So by the time Volume 2 and the finale drop, the actual product can't compete with the perfected versions the fans have built in their heads.
Exactly. It's an impossible standard to meet.
And when the actual product finally did drop, the writing felt different. The source brings up this concept called the TikTok theory regarding the dialogue, and I think this is fascinating. Can you break this down? Is it just that the writers are on TikTok?
It's deeper than that. It's not about what the writers are doing. It's about what the audience.
Okay.
The theory suggests that streaming services, specifically Netflix, are aware of how we watch TV.
Second screening. We're all guilty.
Exactly. We are scrolling Instagram, we are texting, we are checking emails, we're half watching. So the theory is that executives are subtly instructing writers to dummy-proof the dialogue.
Dummy-proof.
Yeah. If the viewer looks down at their phone for 30 seconds, the show needs to make sure they didn't miss anything important when they look back.
So you get what the source calls over-explaining.
Repetition, redundancy. There's a glaring example of this that the source points to, involving Dustin and Steve.
Right. The wormhole explanation. I remember this.
So, Dustin, who is established as the genius of the group, he explains a wormhole concept on a white smart, visual, treats the audience like they have a brain.
And that should be enough. One explanation. We got it.
It should be. But immediately after, the script forces Steve to explain the exact same concept again, but this time using random objects.
Like a flashlight and some toys.
This flashlight is the tower. This toy is Will.
It's explain it like I'm 5. But for a global audience, it's so condescending.
It's redundancy designed for the distract. But for the viewer who is paying attention, the fan who waited 3 years for this, it feels insulting. It feels patronizing.
It feels like the show doesn't trust you to keep up.
Exactly. And the dialogue quality itself took a hit beyond just the repetition. There are lines cited in the source that are just painful.
Oh, I think I know what you're going to say.
Specifically, hit the dick.
There it is.
Size. Yes, a line that presumably meant hit the deck or was some kind of crude joke, but the delivery and context made it feel incredibly unnatural.
It just landed with a thud.
The source argues that no human being has ever spoken like that in a high-stakes situation. It's just not how people talk.
And the acting suffered for it. The source defends the actors, and I have to agree. You can be Meryl Streep, but if the line is garbage, it's going to sound like garbage coming out of your mouth.
You cannot act your way out of a bad script. It's impossible. The performances felt stiff because the words didn't fit in their mouths.
They felt uncomfortable saying the lines.
Yeah. And there is evidence suggesting the production behind the scenes was chaotic, which would explain the script issues.
The source mentions a documentary clip, right? What was that about?
Yes. A behind-the-scenes clip reveals they were shooting episode 8 without a finished script.
That is insane to me.
For a normal show, maybe understandable, but this is the final season of the biggest show on Earth.
They had 3 years. 3 years because of the pandemic. How do you not have the script finished before the cameras roll?
It suggests a production in turmoil. It suggests they were making it up as they went along. And this, of course, led to a lot of rumors.
Oh, the rumor mill.
There was a theory that the Duffer brothers used ChatGPT to write the script.
I saw that one, which was debunked, right?
First, the evidence was just tabs open on a computer screen, which turned out to be a Reddit thread. But the fact that fans believed it speaks to the quality of the writing.
That's the real story.
It felt artificial. It felt like something a machine would.
There was also that rumor about Ross Duffer's divorce, which feels a little gossipy, but the source mentions it.
It's pure speculation, but the theory goes that his ex-wife, who directed the Fear Street trilogy, might have been an uncredited ghostwriter or a significant creative influence on the early.
And the timing lines up.
The timeline of her leaving coincides with the perceived drop in quality. Again, we can't prove it.
Right, it's just a theory.
But it fits the narrative of something fundamental changing in the DNA of the show.
Something was lost.
And then there's the visual budget. They had a reported $5 million per episode. Huge sum.
Astronomical.
Yet the green screen quality was worse.
The source was savage. They said TikTok users green screening themselves into shows looked better than the actual show.
And they're not wrong. There were some shots that looked unfinished. It suggests a rushed post-production. Money can't buy time if the pipeline is clogged or the creative vision.
Speaking of blurred vision, let's talk about the character. Because if the plot armor was annoying, the character arcs were, heartbreaking.
That's a good word for it.
I felt like I was watching Strangers in Strange.
This connects back to the fear of consequence discussed. The source identifies a recurring fake death trope that robs the narrative of any real emotional.
It's the boy who cried wolf of storytelling. You can only do it so many times.
Right. Hopper fake died in season.
We all mourned him. It was a huge moment. And then and then Max died, came back, went into a coma, which was the huge cliffhanger for season 4. And now in season 5, what happens to her?
She just wakes up fine and goes to graduate.
No lasting impact shown, no struggle, no recovery arc. It just happens. It neutralizes the tragedy of the previous season.
Makes that whole storyline.
It does. And then there is 11's.
Oh, this is the big one.
This is the big one. She sacrifices herself to break the cycle of blood magic. It is set to purple rain. It is visually devastating.
So on paper, it's a powerful.
It's the tragic hero's journey complete. It is the ending that makes sense for her characters, the ultimate sacrifice.
But wait, there's an epilogue. There's always an epilogue.
And what does it do?
The epilogue implies she faked her death and is living peacefully somewhere else.
No.
It completely undermines the entire scene. The source compares this to Dexter becoming a lumberjack, or How I Met Your Mother killing the mother so Ted can date Robin.
It's writers wanting to have their cake and eat it too. They want the tears of a tragedy, but the comfort of a happy ending.
You cannot have both without it feeling. You want the credit for the sacrifice without.
And it wasn't just the endings, it was the personality. Robin. What did they do to Robin? In season 3, she was cool, sarcastic, the smartest person in the room. She was my favorite new character.
In season 5, the source describes her as lobotomized. She became a caricature of anxiety, frantic, annoying, unable to form coherent sentences.
Is there a term for this? When a character just becomes one trait, like boiled down to a single quirk.
It's called Flanderization.
Flanderization.
Yeah, it's named after Ned Flanders.
Okay, that makes sense.
He started as just a nice neighbor who went to church. Over 20 seasons, he became an obsessive religious zealot. It happens when writers take one quirk of a character and blow it up until it consumes their entire...
So Robin's quirk was nervous talker.
And by season 5, that's all she was?
And Mike. Poor Mike. He used to be the leader, the heart of the group. Now
He's an NPC. A non-player character. His only role is worried boyfriend.
he just stands in the background and looks concerned.
He was completely psyched. No agency, no arc there.
And Will. His arc was perhaps the most mishandled, the coming out scene. Now, on paper, Will coming out is something fans have wanted for years. It's an important story.
But context is everything. The source points out that Will's coming out scene was longer than the final battle.
Longer than the climax of the entire series.
Yes, and the timing. It occurred right before the apocalypse.
Oh my God, yes.
Exactly. Imagine the world is ending, monsters are eating your neighbors, the sky is red, and Will stops everything to give a monologue to everyone in Hawkins about his feelings.
Hey guys, I know the sky's on fire, but I need you all to know about my dating preference right now. It's absurd.
It felt forced. It felt like checking a box rather than telling a story.
It felt like a network note.
It felt like the writer said, oh, right, we need to resolve this, and just dropped it in the most inconvenient, tonally jarring spot possible.
And it distracted from wrapping up the main arc. The source notes that excessive screen time was given to Mike's little sister, Holly.
The Alice in Wonderland plot for Holly.
Right. Why are we introducing a new fantasy subplot in the final season? We don't have time for this.
Focus on the core 4. It's a total loss of narrative discipline.
And the relationships.
Yeah.
The reunion between Eleven and Max after Max has been in a coma for a year.
A polite hug.
A polite hug.
Yes.
The source says they greet their Uber Eats driver with more excitement.
It's true, there was no emotion. And Nancy's love triangle, which just went nowhere.
Oh, the Temu version of Twilight. That was a great line.
It ends with her choosing neither, which is fine, but the journey to get there was just tedious.
Were there any positives? Please tell me there was one good thing. Any character arc that worked.
The source did praise the Lucas and Max relationship, specifically Lucas's dedication during her coma. That felt earned.
Okay, that's something.
And the conflict between Steve and Dustin.
That was interesting. Dustin pushing Steve away because he's traumatized by Eddie's death.
That felt real. That felt like actual human emotion. Grief is messy. It pushes people apart. But these were, diamonds in a whole lot of...
Okay, so the show stumbled badly.
Yeah.
But the reaction was a cliff dive.
Mm-hmm.
This is where I want to get into the psychology of it all. The source uses the term group psychosis. That feels extreme, doesn't it? We're talking about a TV show, not a cult.
You would think. But looking at the reaction to the finale, psychosis, in the sense of a break from reality, might be the clinically correct metaphor here.
Really?
The backlash was so severe, so painful for the fan base, that a significant portion of them simply refused to believe the episode they watched was real.
You mean they didn't like it, so they pretended it didn't happen?
Yeah.
Like fan denial.
No, I mean, they didn't believe it was canonically real. They convinced themselves that Netflix had aired a decoy episode.
Incredulous. A decoy finale.
Yeah.
A fake episode that cost millions of dollars to produce, just to prank the fan.
What a logic didn't matter, grief did. This is the not real. Fans were crashing Netflix, refreshing the page, waiting for the true ending to drop weeks later.
It speaks to a profound level of cognitive dissonance. I love this show. This ending hurts me. Therefore, this ending cannot be the show.
Exactly. And this brings us to what the source calls conformity. This is where the delusions started to hallucinate.
The folded hands thing. I saw this on Twitter and I thought it was a joke.
It wasn't a joke to them. It's essentially a conspiracy theory born from denial. Fans analyzed the epilogue, the graduation scene, and noticed characters had their hands folded.
Okay, which is a normal way to stand.
Yeah.
I'm probably standing like that right now.
To you and me, yes. But they remembered Vecna standing with folded hands in a previous... Therefore,
everyone is mind-controlled by Vecna.
Precisely. They decided the characters were in a simulation because of how they held their hands.
That's a huge leap.
It gets better. They claimed extras staring at the camera were breaking the fourth wall to signal to the audience that it wasn't real.
Rather than just, extras being bad at their job.
Chuckle. Exactly. But when you are in that state of denial, everything becomes a sign. A radio dial changing color on a prop wasn't a continuity mistake. It was a glitch in the matrix.
It's like the Starbucks cup in Game of Thrones, but instead of laughing at it, they built a religion around it.
A perfect analogy. And we have to touch on the Byler factor here.
Okay.
Because it seems like this specific group was the engine behind a lot of this denial.
For those who don't know, Byler is.
Byler refers to the ship or relationship pairing of Mike and Will,
Right.
the source notes that a specific subset of fans had, and I quote, rewired their brain chemistry to believe Mike and Will were secretly in love and would end up together.
Even though Mike has been with Eleven for pretty much the whole show.
Correct. But these fans viewed every glance, every interaction through that lens. When it doesn't happen, they often accuse the show of queerbait.
So when the show ended with Mike still with Eleven and Will just friends, it wasn't just a disappointment to them.
It was viewed as a betrayal, a personal attack, and that fueled the it's not real, because if the finale isn't real, then there's still a chance for their preferred ending to happen.
It's fascinating. It shows how parasocial relationships with fictional characters can override narrative logic.
It really does. The source notes that Mike looked at Will the same way he looked at Dusty, as a friend. But the fans only saw romance as that.
And social media just throws gasoline on this fire.
It creates an echo chamber. The source argues that it is becoming impossible to form an original.
So you can't just watch it and decide for yourself.
Right. You finish the episode, you open Twitter or TikTok, and the first viral post says, "This sucks." You instinctively want to belong. You want to be part of the conversation, so you...
And it turns into a contest of who can hate it the most.
The source calls it nitpicking versus valid criticism. And there is a great example regarding Mission Impossible.
This one killed me.
It's a perfect example of the hate train. Fans complained that characters in the 80s were referencing Mission Impossible, pointing out that the Tom Cruise movie came out in 1996. A gotcha.
Completely forgetting that mission. Impossible was a wildly popular TV show in the 60s and 70s.
But the facts didn't matter. The complaint went viral because it sounded smart. It sounded like you caught a mistake.
And it's easier to retweet that than to do a 5-second Google search.
Of course. The source also mentions complaints about slang, like ghosting or checks out, claiming they are modern terms.
But history shows those terms were used back then, or at least variations.
Exactly. But people would rather be part of the mob than actually fact-check. It's, I hate this, therefore everything about it.
Yeah, and it creates a feedback where fan theories, often crowdsourced and refined on TikTok, become objectively better, or at least more intricate than the actual writing.
That's the danger. When you have millions of fans hive-minding a perfect ending, the actual writers, who are just two guys in a room, can't compete.
So when the show chooses a simple or even a bad path, it feels boring and stupid by comparison.
Exactly. The fan version is always...
So why does this keep happening? And we've seen it with so many shows. Why do great shows fail? Is it just hard?
It is hard, but the source breaks it down into a few structures. First is lack of plan.
The Breaking Bad versus Game of Thrones comparison. A classic.
Right. Breaking Bad had a clear vision of where Walter White was going from the start. Game of Thrones fell apart when they ran out of books.
So where does Stranger Things fall?
It felt like they were winging it. It felt like they were writing scenes just to get to the next cool visual, not because the story demanded it.
Okay, so lack of a roadmap. What else?
Then there is duration. Shows just run too long.
To keep making money.
To keep making money. And writers burnout. The source suggests that by season 5, the creative tank was empty. You can only do Save the World so many times before it gets repetitive.
And the subverting expectations trap. I feel like this is a big one post Game of Thrones.
It is. Writers try so hard to surprise us that they forget to just write a good logical ending. They want the twist, not the resin.
They want to outsmart the Reddit theory.
Even if it means sacrificing logical character.
And finally, the network fact, the pressure from the top.
The pressure to wrap it up, to create a spectacle, to launch spin-off. It dilutes the purity of the story. You get those network notes like, can we have them explain the wormhole again for the people in the back?
Chuckles.
Yeah.
So if we step back and look at the autopsy report, the final diagnosis, what do we see?
The source concludes that the ending was messy. It was full of contradiction, like the mind flayer needing cold in season 2 but living in a hot desert abyss in 5.
That is a glaring consistency error. How does that even happen?
It just shows a lack of attention to their own lore. But, and this is important, the source says it doesn't erase the love for the early.
So what is the actual lesson here? Because shows have bad endings all the time. Lost Deck. Why does this one feel different? Why did it cause this level of psychosis?
I think the takeaway from McBain's analysis is about the danger of safe storytelling. The creators fell in love with their toys. They couldn't break them. They wanted the feeling of a tragedy, the tears, the slow motion music, the sad songs.
Without the actual cost, without the actual loss of a character like...
They wanted the credit for the sacrifice without paying the bill.
And the audience can smell that counterfeit emotion a mile away.
We can, but there's a darker implication here that the source touches on.
Lay it on me.
If this group psychosis reaction becomes the norm, if fans can just crowdsource a better ending on TikTok and convince themselves that is the real canon, what happens to the writers? What's the point of them?
You mean, does the author even exist anymore? Is it just writing by committee now, with the committee being the entire internet?
Exactly. We might be entering an era where no finale can ever succeed because the algorithm of the fan theory, tailored perfectly to what you want, will always feel better than the messy, imperfect reality of a script written by two human beings.
That is a terrifying thought to leave us on. The death of the author, replaced by the fan fiction hive mind.
Welcome to the future of streaming.
Well, on that existential note, thanks for diving in with us. Whether you're in the upside down or just stuck in a TikTok scroll hole, thanks for listening.
Stay curious.
And try to stay out of the upside down. See you next time.